Well, let's get started at 7:47. Call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to appoint an alternate to sit in Dave's place, and he has requested that Fred do that. And if Fred is willing to do that, it shall be done.
Happy to do so.
Okay. So we've got 6 voting members, including Fred. Then the call to order is done. Fred is seated. Review of April financial reports. Take a minute to look at what you just got. If you don't have comments from what you've received previously, I have a few questions, but I'll wait for you folks to take a review before I ask them. There's a lot of information here, and I don't want to, have you review it with care. We'll be here all night. Is it okay if we begin?
I have one item.
But we can start talking about it. Okay, as a preliminary matter, early this year I had said that, at least for me, I like to receive hard copy in the mail at home so I can review them and make notes and avoid what we're doing right now, which is reviewing them on the table. And I thought we'd agreed to do that, but it hasn't happened consistently. So let me ask you members of the Board of Finance, how many others, I picked up a hard copy, so I have no problem for this one, but how many others at the table would also like a hard copy mailed to you as has been done in the past?
I would like it, but I can't get it the night before. Like, I pick up my mail
Right?
at 7 o'clock at night the
Well,
night
Anita
before.
sent
So
this out several weeks ago.
yes, she did.
Yeah.
And it was helpful to review it on the screen later. But if you're going to send a hard copy, I just need it earlier than to get it on Monday, the day before.
Okay, so Matt, Anna, me, Andy, anybody else need a hard copy?
I mean, that seems like it would just be easier to just send it to everyone.
Well,
Well, we used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with Anna that it really shouldn't wait till the agenda
Right.
and the minutes that may arrive on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I think having it also sent out via email is helpful.
Yes.
Because I scan it there, but to actually look at it, it's much easier with a piece of paper, write notes on it, to bring to the meeting, question marks by numbers. So kind of both.
yeah, that's right. I mean, email is easy, just
Yeah.
press a button.
Yep. But
Okay.
having a hard copy is good for writing notes for the meeting.
And whether it should be sent to everybody or not, if some of you aren't going to look at it, just going to throw it away, is it any harder? You're going to do the mailing. Any harder for you to make a subset list of the folks who want hard copy?
No, I just send it to everybody. I used to.
No. I'm saying not send it to everybody. If there are some folks who literally aren't going to look at the hard copy, we can delete them from the list.
No, I'm actually, if we're gonna send it to
You
almost
prefer
everybody,
the hard-
also send it to me too.
Right.
All right.
I like
Hard copy
Yeah.
is definitely helpful.
All right.
Yeah, and then hopefully you don't have to bring copies for everyone to.
And then do not bring copies to the
Don't give me
meeting.
another one.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I'd rather just do all or no one.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Do it all. It's incumbent on us to bring our copies to the meeting. If you don't, you're out of luck.
So no copies for meetings. I
Correct.
don't cut down on the copying.
Right.
That's fine.
And the second procedural thing, Anita, if when you do the monthly financial reports, if you notice something that seems out of whack and you're troubled by it, bring it to our attention.
Normally I just research it on my end, so I just take care of it.
Well, but if the research says, yep, it's absolutely true that this board is 150% over budget and the number's accurate, but that's a problem. You know what I mean? So, whether it's on the revenue or the expenditure side, don't hesitate to bring our attention to it. So, if I've got the floor, on the first page of the revenues, there are a number of
Just going
revenues.
back to sending out the hard copies. So
Yeah,
At least a few days in advance. Is that-
yeah, we want to send them out as soon as they're available.
I can bring them, as soon as I email them out, I'll bring Michelle down the hard copy.
That'd be great.
And she can send out the packet
Right.
in a couple days.
Okay, super.
So just looking at the actual and anticipated revenues, a number of these line items remain at zero. In other words, 100% left for parking fines, 74% left for Rogers Lake. Maybe that's explainable. Land use fees, 100%. Town Woods Park reimbursement for 97% left. What's your sense of why?
Okay, so the parking fees now, they're incorporated, they all go into one account because they send one check and they don't break it down. So it goes into, I changed the name to parking lot revenue/fine.
Is that on here?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about a third of it.
The check that they send is just one check, and they don't say what belongs where. Whereas probably in previous years it was done differently, because they did have the two accounts. This way there is no broken down, they just send the company that does it.
Oh, that's fine. But if that line now includes the fines, would you delete the fines line?
Well, I can't yet until that, because, it's,
It's history.
I mean, the software doesn't let you do it?
because it has history in it.
Okay. And how about Rogers Lake?
Rogers Lake is based off of what when they built the budget, the budget was built. But normally, the only thing that's gonna go into the Rogers Lake reimbursement is anything I bill them for. So
And
if
they've
they
been
didn't
paying?
spend it, I can't bill it. But the number in the budget should be the percentage of what they asked for in the budget.
Correct. So it's not
But
that,
if they haven't expended it, I can't bill
therefore, it's not that Lyme hasn't reimbursed us.
it. Right. Because they're all up to date with their reimbursement.
And similarly for Town Woods Park reimbursement?
Yes, that's also the same thing with line. They're all current with all their payments.
So I'm just curious, for Town Woods Park, we're almost at the end of the year, and we budgeted $27,000 for the year, and we haven't collected any but $737,000. Does anybody know why that is? Where were the revenues supposed to come from? And are these revenues for Town Woods just reimbursement from Lyme for their share of our expenses?
I think so.
Or if there's anything for, if somebody rented out Town Woods for soccer.
But that's the question,
I
right?
don't know, John anticipated more.
Well, there's a seasonal component to it, so.
But we've spent,
We're almost done with the year. This is, well, the April, we have 2 months left.
for grounds maintenance, we've spent $62,000, which they'd be responsible for their percentage. And we spent $96,000 year-to-date at Town Woods Park.
So that looks like the 27.5 is going to be 25% of what our total budget was.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we spent
or if there's
96,
some
but we haven't been
other-
reimbursed.
Well, yeah, you don't fuss with it now, but would you make a note and look into that and see whether we billed and if it got paid and credited to a different account or?
Oh, that's right, with the Town Woods Park, they're only, is it 18%? They only pay 18%. It's not a 50, it's 18%.
I think it's 20.
Based on the percentage I can use in the school.
No.
No, I don't think so. Town Woods is.
Regardless of whether it's 18 or 25, they haven't
25.
paid with $700. They
Right.
haven't paid either.
We've spent $100,000.
Right,
So, almost.
It is 18%.
Well, you say that and we think no, so we got to check
Well, that doesn't matter either way, we're short.
The numbers are incorrect, but Anita needs to know what she should bill them.
Well, also the timing of the payments begins to matter if you're in a high interest rate environment. Like if we've lost $20,000 that we could have been earning interest on for
Yep.
6-8 months, that begins to add up. And so that's why the timing piece of this, we need to
I bill
push on.
quarterly, so that's why I say the payment might came in yet.
Yeah, regardless of when you bill, if we're not getting, like it looks like we made $700. So.
I have that.
If we're going to go person by person, if you can turn to page 9, Public Safety Emergency Management.
It's better.
Yeah, the first 2 lines, EM salaries and wages, have largely not been spent. Does anybody know why that is true?
Is his emergency management fee or stipend contained in his fire marshals?
It is, and it's not being pulled out. It should be.
No, it's going to be a journal entry at the end that's going to offset.
So you can notice fire marshals overspent.
For some reason, the software is not pulling the percentage that is broken down percentage, part of his stipend, and the software does not do it on the payroll side. So it'll be a journal entry down later on.
Under
Okay.
fire marshal's salary, it shows we only have 6% remaining, which would not be enough to get, so that's,
That's his money.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, my understanding was, back when Bonnie was here, I believe, was the change was made that his stipend would be added to his wages and that we would pay him out of his wages account. That was my understanding from the last 2 years. I could be wrong, but that was my understanding. So you add both together, but it all goes to the salary line.
But it was always pulled out or charged back against the emergency management.
Okay, so,
And I don't recall that it didn't track that way throughout the year.
okay,
But Anita's saying
Yes.
it's going to be an entry at the end of the year that'll wipe the 10,000
out.
out.
Okay.
And that'll push back to the fire marshal's salary to make sure that's not over budget.
Okay, thank you.
I don't recall that happening in the past, but it seems like that's what's happening now.
And it could be something that maybe some of the payroll side is not pulling from that
Right.
number whatsoever. We found a few glitches that is making changes on one side. It's not changing behind the scenes. And we're still working on the software, and I'm told any day now we should be getting that straight.
So, Anita, down below, under public safety ambulance,
Yes.
ambulance wages full-time.
They never hired anybody full-time. They're gonna go all part-time.
Okay.
They changed it for this year. It didn't work out.
And then the second line, volunteer ambulance, is overspent. Is that for the same
That's
reason?
because they
That's where the
never
money's
called
coming
for
from.
full-time.
So they didn't hire full-time, so the
Okay.
whoever is being charged the part-time line.
Good. Finally, if you'll go to, and this is something I'm going to want you to check, if you go to page 14, the two top lines, two beach associations, Edgeley and Oak Ridge.
Okay, that is, the reason for that, if you notice, the bottom line comes out to the same.
The bottom line does, right.
When we put the budget in the beginning of the year, it says the estimate. The second payment is paid on actual. So that's why some will go up and some will go down. It's not on the estimated, because anybody is saying I'm going to spend 50, but only spent 40. And the other person could say I spent 5 and they spent 7,500.
I'll talk to you offline about that. It should go down, but it shouldn't go up. In other words, when somebody, when the association has put their budget in for last year, we can allocate them up to 50%, but no more than that.
Right.
And then if they end up spending more than that, we can't give them more.
Okay.
So that's just a policy question that I'll discuss with you. And that's it for me.
The extra money, we kind of allocate the extra money, whether it was done less.
Well, it would have to go back to somebody. And this is not, I mean, this isn't a major amount of money, but I want to get the process straight. And I think it could also be a timing issue. Anyway, we'll look into it.
I have a question on page 11, municipal police, police wages overtime. We're already over budget.
Yes.
I know that may be because we'll be under budget for full-time salaries because of we budgeted for 6. We haven't had 6, so it requires more overtime. That
And
just,
and Ryan, he just got out of the academy and
Right.
stuff. He just went on to the, actually got more, so yeah.
So
Okay.
Matt brought that to us, our attention, almost a month ago. And
Yep.
he asked if he should come for an appropriation, and Anita told him that it would straighten it out at the end, because he should have plenty.
I'm just,
I think he brought that up at a Board of Finance meeting when they were all here.
Yeah.
That he knew it was going to be an issue.
Right.
And we told him the same thing, that to come back at the end.
Well, it was that the one appropriation you could do
Right.
at the instead of,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly.
Does anybody else have any questions? Hearing none. Let's go to number 3 and ask Mrs. Shoemaker to explain why this item is on the agenda.
1 second, while we have these. Who wants hard copies of the audit? Did I give you one? No, I thought I
Did you give me one
I
already?
thought I just gave you one, didn't I? No, maybe
Not
not.
tonight. Did you
Okay,
give
it
me
is.
one earlier?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's resolved.
So I didn't make a ton of copies, but certainly feel free to share. This is just a rundown of what's been spent from the ARPA allocation to the Swan Brook crib. And that's on our first page, but I sent to BJ as just a brief rundown. And then, as you know, in December, the crib fell apart, the one that we repaired, and in April. So it fell apart. And then we went out and we had some major discussions with Keith Nielsen at DACO and Todd Masnick and members of the Miami Beach Association and members of the Hawks Nest Beach Association on how to handle the rebuilding of the crib. So the second two pages are basically, there's two quotes that Todd sent to us, Todd and Tom sent to us. The trash rack that on the second page, the third page of your handout, basically, these are basically racks that go into the retention pond to try to keep major Phragmites or garbage going through the pipe. At the present time, we only have one trash rack that's working. Keith has suggested a little bit different model. I know that he and Todd and Tom have had conversations. I haven't seen the finished, but it's basically going in the retention pond to keep things from going down the chute, which could potentially clog the pipe. The first quote you see is basically to remove and dispose of the east portion of the crib, which was relatively destroyed, and then also to put some stainless steel grades there as well. He also went in and took out some of the, what do I want to call them? Sorry, basically the posts in the ground that go out into the water, and those that broke off, he removed all of those so that swimming would be safe and whatever. So he did remove the east side last week. He also removed those in the water, so we're good to go. We are waiting, I think, for the steel grates. I was trying to get this done before Memorial Day. But basically, as you can see, our quotes are $1630.40 for our two quotes, and we only have $986 left in the ARPA funding as of April 23rd. I will also tell you that by removing these items, we found out that perhaps this isn't going to be our solution. We really felt that it would. We felt that between the waves, the tides were coming in. This was all back in March, April, beginning of April. So we were all studying them. Keith was studying them, and we felt, remove the east side. It's not going to blow the sand into the corners anymore. We're going to be easy access. So, needless to say, I've had my shovel, and I've been shoveling the crib out when I can to get the pipe flowing over the last 5 days. So, not the answer. We didn't think it was, but it was the cheapest option moving forward for the summer, except for a total redesign, which I would have to come back to you for in the fall as a special appropriation, which we did not plan for. There is another design, but this morning I had a surprise visit from someone at DEEP who also told me that there's some money out there, and that she thinks that with infrastructure and resiliency issues, we probably are a pretty good candidate for some funding. So I will be looking into that. She was supposed to be forwarding me some names, but that is going to cause us to get some major design work, and it won't be Keith. We'll have to have a hydrologist and other studies done to see what's going on with that 1940s design that is not really quite working for us anymore. 17 inches of rain since January has not helped at all. I'm praying that we have very sunny days, and And yes, he can come on here as long as the sun stays out and nothing goes into Swan Brook. I also want you to know that Miami Beach has requested from inland wetlands, and they did do the walk, that they're going to do some extensive clearing out of Swan Brook because there is tree roots, trees growing in it, and other things that are causing, of course. So they've requested that of inland wetlands. They have to come up with their parameters to go back to inland wetlands and tell them exactly what they're going to do.
So Martha, is your recommendation then that selectmen proceed with this repair, and then in addition, you'll follow up with potential deep for like a more strategic or longer term approach?
I do. I hate to spend this amount of money to do a repair, a Band-Aid, but it will save for safety issues that are liability at the outlet, by the beach, and at the retention center. We will be assured that no one can get in there, fall in, and go through those pipes. I cannot believe that we've done this all these years and not had this done. So that's to be done. And I do think that we have to do this going forward. Ed has had the backhoe down there, I think 4 times in the last 6 days, trying to dig out a little bit more every time to keep us going. If one pipe is fine. If one pipe is going and it's just a normal day like today, that's fine. Everything works great. But if both pipes get clogged, or if one pipe is clogged during a rainstorm, that's where we have to be very proactive and make sure it's open. And even one of the residents went down at 5:30 this morning and unclogged them with his own shovel to get, because the parking lot was starting to fill up. There's a lot of background here. There's a lot of things that have been filled in over the years. And I think Mother Nature is saying, I want it back.
Has this work been done yet?
I had to start him because of Memorial Day.
Yeah, so in full disclosure, and you'll see this memo was dated April 23rd. I don't remember why, but I think Andy and I were meeting with Martha for some reason, and she discussed this with us, and we thought it was urgent enough to exercise Martha's emergency powers to go ahead with the expenditure prior to the ratification, effectively, is what we're asking for tonight, of the expenditure.
So, just a question, obviously the quote from last June is still good numbers, so the whole thing is 16,34.
3-4, and I just can guarantee and tell you that there'll be more expenditures for this coming forward.
And what line will this be charged against?
Well,
I mean, it's got to, if we make a motion for the money to be spent, it has to, doesn't it have to go somewhere? Need, I guess, would be the better.
For the dam, right?
what?
It's on the dam.
No, it's not a dam. No.
What is it?
Didn't I walk you down there? I thought I took you to the crib. Down to the beach.
I mean, I don't know where Swan Brook is.
Can we put that in public works? Because, I mean, it's sort of like a, I mean, I know it's not a public, but it's a,
It's something that Ed would,
it's a
Maintenance item.
it's a, like, where is the clean out for the other?
because under Monster Vac, he does have Monster Vac where he does all of his clean outs for,
All the regular storm drains, but like, where is storm drain maintenance and stuff like that? That's in public works,
Public
right?
works.
So this is sort of like
it is a storm, it is.
a storm drain, so it's sort of like a giant storm drain
There you go,
situation.
Public Works.
I'm going to go under Public Works.
So that's where I think I would stick with that.
Maybe, hold on, I got it.
Next fiscal year, we'll come up with a real line for it.
He had Jason drain control and stuff.
Is that
It's
first page?
page 7, under Public Works.
Oh, beach cleaning.
No,
Beach cleaning.
That's a
011-006,
Catch basins and drains,
catch basin drain cleaning.
It's already over.
which he's already over budget on.
Probably
so
for things like this.
So why not go some more over budget?
just stick it in there.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I mean, I'll make the motion for the up to $16,500 for the Swan Brook crib to be repaired.
With an appropriation from,
Public Works, drain cleaning. I guess add this to that budget. But we don't want to catch Ed in a situation where he gets at the end of the year and he needs more money for something. And we can't give him any more money because we do this from there,
Oh, well.
Oh.
right? Because he's already over on that line.
well, can we just take it from surplus?
10,000 left in total
Yeah,
budget, but that goes fast.
Yeah, we still have another week. Yeah.
I mean, unless you could consider, how about under capital outlay, public works projects contractors? That's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
Ed's not doing the
Yeah.
work. That is on page 15, under capital.
That's not going to interfere with the road that he's doing now? He's doing Victoria Lee and Chadwick this week?
That's not in that part of the budget. The only three line items in this part of the budget
No, yeah, that's
are contractors, Grassy Hill Road Bridge, and sidewalk construction.
So, yeah, you're just gonna put it in the public works project, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, contractors.
yeah. If it is,
All right, so it'll be overspent by 10 grand. It'll be overspent by 10
well,
grand.
we're adding 16.5 to it. That's essentially what we're doing.
Right,
is
right,
putting
right.
16.5
It's a great
into
question.
that line item.
It already has $5,000 in it. He's only spent 300.
You know what will
Yeah,
happen?
it's doing something.
You do know what will
for-
happen if you only put in 10, or 11.
Yeah, but we don't, I
Something
mean,
will happen.
this is as of the end of April. Who knows what he
It's
has
fine.
in May and June?
I know.
Right.
That he may have
Okay.
something. That's not a lot of money in public works to have a project. So I'd make the motion for up to 16,500 to be added to the public works, capital outlay contractor line for the Swan Brook crib.
Thank you.
Second.
16,500, up to 16,500 is the quote, is 16,340.
340.
Okay, so after he pays it, then I'll actually transfer, right? Up to.
Well, yeah, it'll be, we've authorized whatever it costs up to the 16.5. If it's gonna run over that, you gotta.
We don't have a problem.
Yeah. All right, so.
I think you can move it.
Motion,
You can move it, yeah.
motion made by Andy and seconded by Anna. Is there any discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Second. Oh,
I did.
Abstentions. Motion passes. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the fiscal year mill rate. We discussed the mill rate maybe in our last meeting, and we came up with the 24 mills, which was the number necessary to equal the expenditures without drawing from the surplus. So, are there any questions or discussion before I ask for a motion? Let's just talk about it.
I mean, BJ, I think at one point you had thrown out possibly being in favor of just making it around 1 mil.
Going up to 24.
Yeah, I might have. And then I asked myself the question whether we can do that, whether we can raise more revenue than we have in expenditures. So, my guess is we can't. Now, we could create a special fund. If that raises another $20,000, we could put $20,000 into the expenditures, a special fund for birthday parties, right? But otherwise, I don't think your revenue should exceed your expenditures.
Special fund should be for the crib.
BJ, I know we have the option to, like, we could go higher or whatever. It feels a little disingenuous to have a couple town meetings and then have it be higher than what we just briefed, at least from my perspective. My preference would be, we briefed 24-4, we stay with that.
Okay.
And I understand that there's a good rationale that you might want to go higher for the future, but it doesn't feel quite right to me.
Can we just decide that's what the mill rate's gonna be with the town vote?
Well, we have to vote, no, the town meeting approved the budget. They didn't approve the mill rate, although that's kind of implied by the budget. So we have to vote on the mill rate. And before we take the vote, I just wanted to entertain any comments or discussion.
When was the last time we had a mill rate increase?
Last year.
It was last year.
No, we didn't.
Last year it stayed the same.
It was flat last year.
Yeah.
The last 2 years it was flat.
Yeah,
Last 2 years it was flat. Yeah.
that's what I thought, because we were moving money from surplus to make it that way.
Yeah.
Which is not inappropriate, it is
No,
appropriate.
I'm just
Correct.
asking.
Yeah.
So we
Correct.
haven't had an increase for a couple of years. And I agree that we kind of talked about this as being a mill rate based on the budget that they passed today. To bump it even higher, I just don't think that would look good.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we didn't have the senior center, we didn't have the Region 18 project, we'd again draw from surplus and just hold it constant. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion from somebody.
I'll make a motion that the mill rate for the 24-25 fiscal year be set at 24.4.
You have a second?
24.4.
I'll second that.
Fred seconded.
That's the
Any-
number, right?
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That passes. Okay, so the last substantive issue, which does deserve discussion before we just look at the minutes, is the senior center bond. And I want to distribute a spreadsheet that Anita and I and then Dave Kelsey have been working on, just to kind of give you a very gross look at the numbers. Should have it. Okay. So what I wanted to do was to look into the future a little bit, which is kind of difficult, but better to have numbers on a piece of paper than nothing. But starting with the current year and the budget that we've approved, that's the first column, and you can just see the breakdown of the budget, which separates operations from debt. The second row of debt includes, in addition to the current town and current Board of Ed debt service, those are the highlighted lines in blue and green, two other numbers, which are the $65,000 for the senior center bonds and $246 for the Board of Education option, so-called scenario 4D. And these are just plug numbers. If we go ahead with issuing $4 million of bonds, let's just assume that would generate $65,000 worth of expense. I don't know whether it's probably principal and interest, that's interest, I don't know. And similarly on the Board of Education, although I've said that it doesn't have a big impact on this year, next year it would have this $246,000 according to that present scenario. So that would, and then looking at the town revenue numbers going to the total revenue, this is what's on the budget that we approved. And the difference of 311 is just those two debt service numbers. In other words, if you back out the senior center bond and the Board of Education option 4D, then the revenue and expenses equalize. The only reason it's over 311 is the assumption that we might have to pay that on the bonds, and we have to find that somewhere from surplus. But then the following year is where the worry comes in. If you look at the debt line, you would see that the senior center bond numbers go from 65,000 to 395, but then stay in the six-figure category, which is painful, but okay. But the Region 18 numbers go to the seven-figure category, which is less okay. And these are just hypothetical numbers based on amortizing the $36 million worth of bonds over a couple of different scenarios, and this is the one that appeared to the folks who've been advising Ian as maybe the preferable one. And these numbers will change, but I think they won't change on an order of magnitude basis, right? So they'll change, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not in the millions of dollars. We're going to have a $2 or $3 million hit for the next several years. And then as the bonds get amortized, the hit will be less. So if I'm right that 1 mil is about 1.6 million, then an increase of 3.5 million is over 2 mils, and then the next year of 2 million is $1.5 million, and so on. And that's gonna be painful for the taxpayers, and therefore, in my view, important to try to reduce that mill increase by using the surplus. And therefore, my own view is that we should preserve the surplus by, or conversely, we shouldn't deplete the surplus by paying the $4.1 million for the senior center out of pocket. We should bond it. So those are my thoughts, but what do others think?
Have we gotten any estimates on bond rates yet? I'm seeing that this is assuming a 3.45%.
This was a handout at the beginning of this meeting.
Oh, this one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, from Barry.
Yep.
So he's assuming a 3.45% interest rate, and I believe he's basing that on some recent bond issues at is it a AAA or a AA plus rating? What did he say in
He
his
gave us
cover?
a town that he was just put up a bond, I believe.
Yeah.
AA.
Last time he gave us like Griswold and some other town.
Yeah.
And they both had
Example.
very nice.
And they were actually lower than the 3.5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, something
I
like
want to say
that.
it was, 275.
I mean, it depended on the
Yeah.
term and
Yeah.
everything else, but it was more attractive than the
But
3.5.
the other comment that is relevant, of course, is that we're earning interest on our reserves, right? So if we retain the $4 million in our reserves, at the moment, we're earning 5-ish% on it. And depending on what the Fed does over the next year or two, it'll probably come down. But is it going to come down 1.5 to 3.5? I mean, maybe, but at least for the immediate and maybe foreseeable-ish future, we're now earning money on the reserves that would equal or exceed the interest we're paying on the bonds, which just makes it less painful to borrow the money.
Does the reval have any, are we just concerned about the number of saying the mills are going up? Because that would change that.
No, yeah,
It would change money, but do
people need to be educated, right?
Right.
So when there's a reval and the numbers go up, as they don't always, but they certainly will, and the budget stays constant, the mill rate goes down.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But
So
the taxes stay the same.
But does that compute necessarily in people's minds? When you say, if next year, because of a reval, we were able to keep it the same mills, but
Paying more.
you're still paying more, but not everyone quite figures that out.
So they
So if you're
figured out
like,
when
well,
they
we're
get
able
the
to keep
bill.
the mill rate the same, although your taxes will go up.
Well, but, I mean.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like-
That's why BJ's slide in the presentation, which gave the three examples. of
Exactly.
Three different
Yes.
home values, show the impact of those $400,000
Right.
home. But how many people were here to see that?
That's what I mean.
5, besides the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen.
Right.
It is on the website, though.
Well, but, you know,
Yeah.
again, that's always been the case, I think.
I agree.
And
That you could find the information if you wanted to, but most people are happier saying, oh, we have a really low mill rate.
Yeah, but
I mean, it doesn't really mean anything.
that happiness dissipates as soon as they get the
July.
bill from the tax collector.
20th, whenever your tax bill.
I mean, this is gonna be a hard pill to swallow, no matter how you try to package it, but at least knowing that,
It might mitigate a little bit.
yeah,
It will mitigate it for the folks whose houses don't go up, right?
true,
And
true.
because what the reval
That'll
does
be
do
wonderful for them.
is it reallocates the tax burden to different
Correct.
types of properties in different locations.
Correct.
So BJ, to your original point, like looking at these numbers, I agree, bonding is probably the way to go. The problem is, like, as we can see, is like, it's not just a one-year hit, it goes, I won't say in perpetuity, but from a taxpayer standpoint, the next 4 years kind of is perpetuity, right? Like, it's
Right.
Yep.
But
Big jump.
we do have one coming off this year. One of our payments, that's the change, one of our debts is paid off this year. So that is why it levels out, it pretty much takes the place of the one that we're leasing.
Yeah.
The town debt does.
Yes, the town debt.
And Region 18, their money doesn't come off significantly until 2031, when it goes from, on their current existing,
Yeah, on there, yeah.
what they currently have in place for the high school, you know, it goes from 1.7 million to 1 million.
Yeah, to your point, Matt, which is a very good one, if you look at column I in Barry's chart, total existing and proposed debt service, and I'm on the 20-year, $4 million bond issue, he's showing that our total debt service this year is $442.9, right?
Yeah,
Then it goes up next year by $60,000 to $500. Then it starts going down to $471, and then $460, $452, which is, on the order of magnitude of the current debt service, to
yes, it is. Right.
Kim's point about, one of the bonds coming off, and then the others being substantially less at the 136 level.
Right, and the reason that goes up to the 500 is because there'll be one interest payment of about 65,000 on the new debt in
Right.
this year.
Right. So, although it is, as you say, in reasonable perpetuity, it doesn't increase our current debt service load, except, to a minor degree.
And, well, the other thing,
Until
BJ,
Region
if
18.
the interest rates
Yeah,
shift,
the bond, the
Talk
senior
about
center is not
that.
the issue.
Yeah. It's not the issue.
And it's pretty minimal payment.
and the reality
How are we
is,
gonna pay
if
for
those
that?
interest rates start shifting in 5 or 6 years, we could choose to take money out of surplus and pay it off.
That's true. That's
We
also
don't
true.
have to stick with 20 years
Is that,
if it made sense.
is that true that the bonds are
Yes.
redeemable? They can
I
be
believe
called?
I think they can.
I'm pretty sure that's what somebody
We've
said
done it.
already.
I think he said that.
They're callable.
You have to do it certain many years. You have to wait a number of years before.
Right, but there is a point where you could, if it
Probably
makes sense.
2031.
And it may not make sense at 2 point whatever percent.
Right.
What's the interest rate on the bonds that are there now?
Status quo.
Anita, do you know what our interest rate was on our current bonds? Do you know what the interest rate was?
Probably very low.
They're probably lower, I bet they're less than 2.
Yeah, if they were
They're 10 years ago for the Town Hall and library. The library's the most recent, and that, I think, was 10-year.
That's the one that we're, the town hall one is coming off this year.
Right.
And the library still.
That was,
Library. If the library's not that old.
I think the Town Hall was 4 million 10 or 15 years ago.
So, I mean, are we still uncertain about bonding?
We haven't made an official decision.
And to me, it seems like it's the way to go, and you need to use that surplus to cushion the blow that's gonna hit us in a couple of
Right,
years.
so what I'm actually looking for tonight is a consensus on this board of whether we should bond, and if so, how much and for how long, as a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
I'd bond the whole amount in
I,
terms of the amortization schedule. I'm open.
I was thinking 15 years would be a compromise, but.
Yeah.
I mean, but once you had the pool on there, it's-
Doesn't make any difference.
It bumps the annual cost up a little bit more than the 20 year.
Well, it's fine, I don't think it's longer.
Yeah, the problem with the 10 years, you get whacked in 2026 at the same time,
Yeah.
Region 18, you know, that's just
Insult to injury.
insignificant compared to there, it will take, it's just,
Yeah, the 15 years is interesting. The next year, not this fiscal year, but 25, it goes down a little bit, but then it goes up significantly from 471 to 532.
yeah,
So it's going up by 50,000, 60,000, 60,000, 60,000, 50 to 60,000. So the price of the quicker amortization and the aggregate reduction in the interest is a 50 or 60,000 additional principal payment, which I suppose makes sense.
I mean, we're paying, basically, we'd be paying about $400,000 more to go from 15 to 20 years. Right?
In interest over the life of the bonds, right?
The debt service, the total debt service, for 15 years is $5 million, for 20 years is $5.5 million, basically, a little less.
it would be interesting to find out when we could pay it off, though, if you took the 20 and then had an intention.
I know that, bond council did say they would come and speak to everybody. That's something that you would want to do.
I mean, he's paying it off a likely scenario because we're going to take so much from the surplus.
Well, if it
towards the
takes
school.
10 years to pay, if they won't take it for 10 years, then you might as
I'll
well
send an email tomorrow and ask.
say, in 10 years, we'll be back down low again.
Well, and maybe paying it off, but it's
God
also
willing, we
a
don't have
question,
another project.
if the earnings on our reserves have declined, so too has the borrowing rate. So do we pay it off and refinance at a lower interest rate?
The school's done that.
I know,
in the past.
true.
They've refinanced their bonds.
yes,
Oh, a lot of
saved a lot of money.
That's right.
Yeah, that is normal. And sometimes they want something else in it when they refinance, another big project that's due at the time, like a fire truck.
So when's the next time we have to bond for a major expense? Down the road.
There's a lot of, major projects that I see coming up are definitely the Grassy Hill Bridge, which we will do some analysis, but to get the money from the state, we have to complete it by 2027.
But for that project, how much do we have set aside in town funds?
I think it's about $645,000.
Grassy Hill?
Yeah,
940?
No, 940.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think it's close to $1 million.
Okay, 940, and
It was on the slide.
I have the
Thanks.
state number, I can, tomorrow I'll get it to you, but the state numbers came in from what they're going to re-gift us since the original grant disappeared and then came back with.
Didn't carry over.
I must just have
And what
money
was the
sitting-
total cost of that project, $3 million?
I don't have the figures. I did ask for, Jacobson to give an update. He did a roundup for the state. They didn't offer to give us any more though. I was kind of hoping they would.
At Grassy Hill, we've got 947 in the special
Oh,
fund.
they press 970, 127, as of April 30th.
It's almost, it'll be up at $1 million.
Yeah. Was it $3 million? Is that what that project was up to?
No, it's 1.6 or 7,
Originally.
but then but there's some state money out there on top of what we already have in our budget,
And in this
potentially.
year's,
Yes,
in this
that's the
year's
grant.
budget, there's 355 that would go in here too, that we can
Right,
transfer.
so,
So
you
you
know,
would have,
that's not gonna be something we're gonna have to probably bond, we've got the money. And so it won't be.
Unless we've spent it on
It's a major project, but,
Oh, my goodness.
There are, that, and there's the, cross lane underpass where, the, pipe underneath it supposedly needs to be replaced. When we sent the plans to Amtrak, the Amtrak people were all there when we had the engineer there. Everybody was like, oh, this is great, you guys do this, dig it up, we'll shore up the thing, everybody's happy. So we sent the plan, they asked for a cross-section, sent the cross-section in, and then they sent me a bill for $47,000 because they need to review our plan. And every reviewer has a team of 2, and there were, I don't know how many, 23 different review boards that had it to go through, and it was $1,300 per engineer to look at each step. And I called them up and said, I'm not paying for your part of the project. I said, we don't need to do this. Our issue under the Crosslane Bridge is okay. I said, you're the one that says it needs to be shored up. And I said, so if the train falls off the bridge, I said, I already have your email saying it needs to be shored up. It will not be my fault because the drainage system underneath is not causing this problem. And the poor girl had only been on the job for 3 weeks. But I said to her, I didn't intend this to be. And then the local Amtrak person called me and said, yeah, this is what they do. They try to nab you for cash. And I said, well, I'm not paying that. So I told her, I said, we'll put the project on hold. If you'd like to do it, we're more than happy to work with you, but I've already paid an engineer to design this. And we'll go out to bid for it, but we're not paying $47,000 to have you look at it again. So the young person locally said he would get some words into them, and the last I heard was, we are re-looking at this project for you, but I have not had an update for like 3 weeks.
one of the other projects that was out there was the emergency management.
Right.
Yes,
And that was originally gonna be this $4 million thing
Yeah.
that has been scaled back pretty significantly, I understand.
yes,
So it may be more in the $1 million range with some money from outside as well.
right.
So I think when we started this process, BJ, when we started looking at the major stuff on the horizon, we had Grassy Hill Road, we had, I don't think we had Cross Lane
Not
So we
yet.
had Grassy,
drainage problem, we had Grassy Hill Road Bridge, we had emergency management, we had increased costs of fire apparatus, is something that we mentioned. And I think there was one other.
Library Lane is also going to have to be addressed because of the flooding at Library Lane.
yeah, Dave Kelsey had listed a few
Yeah.
things, and he included the Halls Road expense,
Right, that's right.
you know, which hasn't been agreed upon yet.
That's right. So it wasn't a large total at that point. That was the other one. That was the major one that was known at that time, or thought about as being part of the list.
Yeah, I had the
And
senior
those
center.
numbers-
$5 million for Halls Road.
Right. And the Grassy Hill, we had $2 million.
Right.
We've got north of $1 million already for it, right?
And then you-
And the EMS center, he had $4
Yeah.
million, which is
It's
gonna
been
be
significantly less.
Right.
So I think that's all good news, that we should be able to handle those projects without bonding. The real thing out there is still Region 18 and how we handle those few years. And having some surplus money to soften the blow. We're not going to be able to eliminate it by any means, but to soften it will be helpful. But I do think, you mentioned in your presentation about the amount that's recommended for having in surplus is 15%. Every auditor that sat in the chair presenting to us as a Board of Finance on a shoreline town has felt comfortable or felt that we should be north of 20 to 25%. That 15% might be fine for Norwich, Montville, Willimantic, away from the shoreline.
Because you have three shore, yes.
We have, you know, the potential of a hurricane. You were talking about what it's done to the crib. Potential of a hurricane wiping out shoreline homes and taking them off our tax rolls for a number of years while they rebuild. You can't tax somebody for a $2 million home if they've got a piece of sand and gravel. And that's what they gave us the idea that having, because we've asked that question for years, is do we have too much in surplus? And I can't remember.
I agree with Andy, we may not be able to take as much out as we would like,
Right.
so that we maintain
But I think,
that higher amount.
I certainly think, you know, with the amount we have, we can afford to dig into it. But I think taking it down to 15% might be a little too aggressive. But that's conversation for a whole different meeting, a whole different time.
That's down the road, but although I've heard that rationale, I didn't know that anybody has pushed hard back on it. But recently, and our surplus has just come up this year, there's going to be more and more pushback in the public about the surplus being too high. I refer you, or you may have seen it, what's her name, Elizabeth Regan's article in the Day a couple of weeks ago, where she cited what the surplus percentages were in regional towns, and I think Lyme was higher than ours, but the other coastal towns were significantly lower than ours. And I think that the pushback argument is we're talking about a hypothetical, right, of a reduction in income tax revenue based on some superstorm in the future, and is it appropriate for the taxpayers today to start building up today in real time in real dollars to build up a reserve against a hypothetical that may or may not occur in the foreseeable future.
I think there needs to be a reasonable number, but I do think I think our surplus should be greater than what inland towns have, percentage-wise, because it wouldn't take much to, again, other communities get hit by tornadoes and floods and things like that.
I mean,
So,
again, we
again,
don't want to
it's
spend
another
time on it
time,
tonight. But the
but I think
counter argument would be, when is the last time that a storm knocked out $20 million or $30 or $40 million of shoreline property in Old Lyme?
Well,
And the answer is
prices
probably
have gone up.
38.
Well, they weren't worth that much then. I mean, you know, certainly as a percentage of the budget, it probably was. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's something I think we just have to be careful of. I don't think we should be increasing the mill rate to increase the surplus. I don't agree with that at all. I think
So in any event,
it's
your
there
argument-
for, you know, we've got some huge increases coming in the next few years from Region 18. I think it's there to soften the blow, not eliminate the blow, but soften the blow. I think we've been very conservative with our borrowing, and that's great. I think it makes sense to borrow for the senior center. The full amount, originally I thought, maybe half and half, but I think at this point, with the interest rates where they are and what we can earn on our money that is in the bank, I think it makes sense to borrow the $4 million or whatever.
Go ahead. Well, I think the question is it going to be 15 years or 20 years?
That's exactly what I was
Yeah.
going to say.
Yeah.
I think we just need to make a decision on, is it 15 or 20, compare these two and see.
So what are people's...
Well, that may be true, that's the question, but let's ask Anna and Kim, what do you think on this threshold question?
Threshold of what?
Should we borrow the full $4 million or
Yeah,
4.1 million?
Yes. I think I agree. The only question here is it a 15 or a 20 year?
And Diane, you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So it narrows the question. We're going to bond, and I think might as well, if we're going for 4, go for 4.1. And should it be 15 or 20 years? What do you think?
I think my answer on that would be, when can you pay it, if you want to pay it off?
I agree.
When can you pay it off? Is there a difference between the 20-year or 15-year? Or is it just 5 years out that you've got to hold it, or 7 years, or 10? Just to know, not that we would do that, it may not make any sense, but just to have that as part of the decision-making process.
That's one variable. The other variable is if there's any meaningful interest rate differential between the 15 and 20.
Right.
Good question.
Yeah, right.
I think if you have those two pieces of data, you'll be able to make a pretty informed decision.
Yeah, because he has 3.45 for all of them, and then
Yeah.
they're not going to be.
They're not going to be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
According to Google, and I will check, it's 10 years after the bond is issued.
That you can pay it off.
And I mean, I will
Yep.
research it
Yeah,
tomorrow, but
check with him. I mean, that's-
according to, you
Yep.
can do it 10 years after.
But for
Just depends
for
what you
bonds,
negotiate.
the rate is.
It
Right,
says
maybe it
10
doesn't matter.
years after, it can exercise 10 years after the bond was issued.
Right, but we need to know what bond are they talking about?
But
Is it
that's
a
on
30-year
Google.
bond?
I mean,
or-
that's, that's a good place to
I make all
start.
my
It's a municipal bond.
Okay, municipal bonds.
I'm quite sure in our first discussions with Michael and Barry, that was the number, the year range that they gave out that you could start to consider. And that's also when they said you'll also want to look at possibly refinancing, because it will depend
Right.
on what happens.
I mean, I would agree with that. There's just a lot, this is a big difference in an unfortunate year. 2026 is going to be a challenge, no matter what way we look at it. And keeping it an extra $60,000 lower with the potential of refinancing later might make more sense
Yeah, I agree. So to go with 20.
to go with 20.
To get at least refinance.
Exactly.
And you could probably do that in less than 10 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Refinancing
Just get us
different
through
than
this,
refining.
that hump, those 2 years where like, it's really going to be extremely painful. Do whatever we can to keep costs low.
I mean, there are fees involved with doing that.
Yes, there are.
And I think
Yes,
the other
there
thing that
are.
David wanted us to look at is similar to what we did with the library, we just went to Webster Bank.
Yeah, we did.
What would the cost of borrowing $4.1 million be from a,
Their rate was higher. Their rate was like 2% higher when
was
I.
it 2%?
When, they were 4.7 when I did call, the original paperwork that I did give you.
That was the
And-
fall.
But we have to check with Barry and confirm the rates, as Fred said, what are the rates for the 15-year, what are the rates for the 20-year?
Yeah, I think
Can we
that's
just
a
get two
big
quotes
difference.
At this point,
Yeah.
what's the best?
And then you have to look at
Yeah.
the cost of the bonding versus the cost of going to the bank.
Yeah,
The bank you could probably pay off whenever you feel like it,
And the bank charges was about 5,000.
And you have,
as opposed to, so, I mean, it's just, the two scenarios, I think,
You can look at all
are
this.
worth looking at.
our bond counsel is also, likes to weigh in on what he thinks is best for us as well.
Well, of course, he's
gonna make some money off
trying
of
to
it.
make money.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Well,
Okay.
so I'm kind of hearing a consensus for a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to bond $4.1 million for 20 years, subject to the preferential differences that might accrue if it were a 15-year term rather than 20, and the interest rate, the payoff time differential, or any other advantage.
And looking at the bank at the same time.
Well, we did look at the bank, and the interest rates were, and Barry, I don't know if Barry had something or Anita had something, and the borrowing rates were substantially higher.
4 and 4, 5.
But that was in the fall?
Yes, but
Yeah.
also the bonding outside was offering premiums to people who were taking out the bond.
Well,
which Webster
but
was
the
not.
bottom line is, there's no reason not to revisit the bank question to confirm
Yep.
that the bonding advantage remains.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm fine with 20. I'm not entirely sold on 20 versus 15, but hopefully we've had enough discussion on it at this point.
All right, so maybe, since it's still a little bit in flux, you know the sense of the board. I don't know that we should adopt a formal resolution for something that's mushy. So why don't we bounce it back?
Selectmen.
Yeah, bounce it back to the Board of Selectmen and talk to Barry and get some more information. And then you come up with a recommendation, and if you want our blessing, we can bless it.
I would just ask that you come to that Board of Selectmen.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, that's good. Progress. Now we've got the goddamn minutes.
That'll be in the minutes next month, right, Michelle?
Just being Kate, CJ. Just being Kate.
There's no one on the line. Don't worry.
Who remembers March 26th?
You know what? I remember March 26th.
You weren't here?
Because I am marked absent, but I came late and heard most of the meeting
Yeah, but
because
you were
you
never
guys
sworn in. So
were
you-
stuck, yeah, so I'm still absent, which is irksome.
So we don't give you a report card compromise.
I know, right? Exactly.
I've seen before we've put up at the top as under present, you've put someone, like on a rider in parentheses, arrived late.
Yeah, pop me up there.
You want that on your?
I do. I want to be marked as tardy, please.
You just put a little asterisk next to it and then put it on the bottom.
There we go. Yeah, not absent. Present in person for most of the discussion.
I agree, you weren't that late.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the March 26th minutes.
I'll second that.
How are you doing with the ADA fund down at Soundview?
Another project. Oh, yeah, that's another project.
Making progress?
Yeah, so we had a question from zoning on whether, since financing had been provided by the state for the sidewalk project at that end of the Hartford Ave, would they be upset that we were cutting into a curb? So when I asked that question, now I want you to know that we reached out to the ADA committees at federal and state level, and couldn't get any answers when we originally started to look at this. So I called Rob Harabut over at Rivercog and said, what do you think? And he said, well, I can't believe they'd be upset because ADA. So he said, but I have an ADA consultant for the state that I could send it to.
Oh, for God's sake.
So as soon as she heard, she's like, oh, can I see your plans? Oh, would you like some help on this? I was like, where were you before I went to zoning? I said, I've already gotten the plans approved. So she's looking at them. I don't think there'll be any changes, but also, we've also been given by the federal judge that as long as it's done 6 months from the date I sign the resolution, that we can be done with the federal judge. So I haven't signed it yet because I'm waiting to see where we go. But I'll follow up with her this week and then see what she says, and then otherwise we will then go out to bid to see what we can get. So I'm a little leery about doing 6 months. So she's basically saying you can stay open all summer with the way things are and just get it done in 6 months. And 6 months puts me in the middle of hurricane season. I don't really like putting money into that if I'm going to see 18 inches of water over it during winter storms or fall storms. Kind of puts it all in danger. And if I do it during the summer, I have to question whether we want to do it and close part of the parking lot for a couple of days while they do it. So Jim and Jude and I are going to have a discussion once we get the last answer. Zoning's approved it, so we can go ahead and go out to bid for it, but that will be
Thank you.
another bit. I don't know what it will cost yet. I'd love to say, how big can it be? If it's smaller than your driveway.
Okay, so minutes of the 26th of March have been, a motion has been made to accept them as drafted. The motion has been seconded. Do I hear any discussion? No further discussion, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? One. Anna abstains because she was late.
Sure, that's in there.
I mean, make sure
Tardy.
that's in the minutes. Tardy, okay.
Teacher contract
And
now.
let's look at the April 2nd.
Wait, we didn't vote, did we? Oh, yeah, we voted, never mind, okay. Pass. Yep, I abstained, right, sure. Okay. April 2nd.
I'll make a motion for the minutes of April 2nd be accepted. Special, is that a special meeting?
The second?
Yeah.
Say what?
I was gonna say I'll second.
Okay, second by Kim. Any discussion?
My name is spelled wrong. You
You
added
are really
A.
being a pain.
I'm
You're late.
sorry, I'm
You were late the meeting
sorry.
before, that's what happens.
That's what happens. I know you get forgotten about when you're tardy.
Okay.
Candace did those two.
No discussion then. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. And then we're up to April 23rd. Okay. And now you were really absent.
This is a dial-in, okay? Very short notice.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the special meeting on April 23rd.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Two. So Matt and Anna abstain. And Anna's name is spelled correctly. Motion passes. Thank you. Is there any other business at this late hour? Is there any public comment? We have a public person. Does he want to speak? Say what?
I'm a retired CFO, so I want to listen.
Well, we appreciate it. We're very lonely here. You say that. Not a big
The budget's much bigger than this.
And what did you think? Are we halfway intelligent?
Yeah, very well done.
Thank you.
No. Honestly, good answers. I mean, I think the good thing is to get, questions out ahead of time, so we can give you answers at the meeting.
Right.
And nothing surprising about that.
Thanks. Okay, motion to adjourn, anybody?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're out of here.